The chapter that I decided to read through in regards to Christianity and the American Revolution was from author Daniel L. Dreisbach's 2017 work entitled Reading the Bible with the Founding Fathers. The chapter is called The Bible in American History, the First Prayer in Congress, and it works to detail that very first prayer of the First Continental Congress, which is pictured in the background with that famous painting. It also tells the interesting story surrounding the man who delivered that prayer. Once the delegates arrived from each of the 13 colonies, excluding Georgia, it was proposed by Thomas Cushing, the Speaker of the Massachusetts Assembly, that they should conduct their meetings after a prayer. While some of the delegates desired this motion, others argued that it would not be possible, considering there were delegates of various religious backgrounds, and that one prayer could not fulfill the desires of the entire audience. The major arguments against the action of opening the meetings with a prayer were prompted by the Episcopalian delegates of John Jay and John Rutledge. In order to dispel their fears, Samuel Adams recommended that Reverend Jacob Duché, a prominent Episcopalian clergyman in the city of Philadelphia, should conduct the prayers. The motivation behind Adams's choice is questioned by many, but historian Martin Medhurst, in his work From Duché to Prevost, argues that it was done to win over Anglican Americans, as the vast majority of Anglican clergymen were and would remain loyal to the English crown. Appointing an Episcopalian could promote the causes of the First Continental Congress in crowds that were less sympathetic to the arguments of the Patriots. Reverend Jacob Duché was born into a family of great prominence in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His father was the former mayor of Philadelphia, and he married the sister of one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, Francis Hopkinson. Educated partially at the University of Cambridge, Duché returned home to Philadelphia to lead the oldest and wealthiest parish of the Church of England in the colony of Pennsylvania. Despite his education taking place in England, Duché seemed to firmly believe in his ideals and the ideals professed by many of the delegates at the First Continental Congress. So much so that he chose to use Psalm chapter 35, verses 1 through 8, which pleads to God for help in the face of powerful oppressors. In this case, the powerful oppressor alluded to Great Britain in its recent parliamentary acts. The delegates also found security in their decision of nominating Duché because he believed, according to historian Kevin J. Delop, in Jacob Duché, Whig Loyalist, that America had a special religious destiny that sustained the idea that Philadelphia was a holy experiment and that Massachusetts was a city on a hill. This view of ordained providence being placed on the colonists from God permeated throughout the attendees of the Congress. The patriotic elements of the Continental Congress also approved of Duché because he explicitly crossed out the prayers for King George and the royal family from the Book of Common Prayer. The replacement of King George with the Continental Congress in the prayer angered many loyalists in Philadelphia as well as across the 13 colonies. Duché continued his patriotic and pro-independence prayers at the beginning of the conflict, but as the rebellion went on, Duché's allegiance wavered. During the British occupation of Philadelphia, Duché wrote a letter to Washington advising him to persuade Congress to rescind the Declaration of Independence and to sue for peace. Duché's decision to run back to the royal crown changed his reputation with loyalists and the British. Historian Clark Garrett, in The Spiritual Odyssey of Jacob Duché, wrote that Duché was arrested by the British Army in 1777, but was promptly released after the Loyalists informed the soldiers of his disenchantment with the Revolution. Once Duché's letter to Washington became public, the Patriots quickly identified him as a traitor to the cause. Duché fled to England when the British evacuated Philadelphia and wouldn't return until 1792. While the delegates of the First Continental Congress included a prayer to reinforce the idea of a righteous cause, the man behind the prayer would prove to be a thorn in the side of those same delegates.